the Rebecca Jones raid before it happened?
What, excuse me?
Were you aware that the Rebecca Jones raid was about to happen?
I knew there was an investigation. I didn't know what they were doing. It's not a raid. I mean, with all due respect, what you just said is editorializing. Excuse me. No, excuse me. I'm not going to let you get away with it. These people did their jobs. They've been smeared as the Gestapo for doing their jobs. They did a search warrant. Why did they do a search warrant on the house? Because her IP address was linked to the felony. What were they supposed to do? Just ignore it? Of course not. They went, they followed protocol. We actually have video from the Tallahassee PD showing that they were very respectful. She was not cooperative. It was not a raid. They were serving valid process in accordance with the laws and Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida. They did it with integrity. They did it with honor. And to say it's a raid is disinformation. And you guys need to drive.
Question, sir. That's why I have very limited time.
Excuse me. You guys need to look at facts and stop trying to feed narratives. I understand why you do it, but it's not supported by facts, and so you should be better than that.
I don't do that, sir.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And our priorities have been focusing on the people that are most vulnerable, as well as those folks who are in really high contact healthcare settings. And the reason for both of those is the folks, for example, in long-term care facilities have had the worst clinical outcomes by far of any group in the United States. And so we've put a lot of resources into protecting long-term care facilities, and I think it's been effective at mitigating. But no matter what you do, this thing finds a way at some point in time. And so to be able to have vaccines available for the most vulnerable residents, that'll be something that'll really be a game changer. It'll reduce mortality. And I think less discussed, it will allow these facilities to return to normal. We've thought it was very important to have visitation because these folks were really in a state of loneliness. That's been helpful to a lot of people, but they still have a lot of mitigation because obviously you want to keep this out of there. And a lot of the facilities have a lot of very rigorous requirements. That takes a toll. And so to be able to have a more normal environment for those elderly residents of long-term care, I think is going to be really, really important. On the healthcare side, there was a lot said at the beginning of this pandemic about massive shortages of hospital beds, and there were all these models. All of those were inaccurate, wildly inaccurate. There's not been any bed shortage anywhere in the country. But I think what we found is when you have higher traffic, particularly like we saw in the Northeast in the spring and the Sun Belt in the summer, and then just now in the Midwest, this is very labor intensive for healthcare workers. And so you have isolation procedures, and of course, not everyone who has COVID in the hospital is necessarily being treated for it, but you got a broken leg and you're COVID positive, they're still doing those types of procedures to make sure they limit the spread. One exposure, one infection could have a bunch of exposures. You end up isolating 10, 12 medical personnel at a time. That really taxes the workforce.